PUAtraining.com.
Hey guys, so in this video I'm going to talk about first dates. So the first thing is when you actually get the number. Let's try and make it solid, so just 30 seconds on that. When you meet her, have your conversation, get the number, all of that stuff, but try and do some things. Find out her kind of plans for the next week or so, when she's free, and if possible, try and nail down the date, the place, the time, the day, everything in that initial meeting, so you don't have to send me messages, Richard, what do I text her, she doesn't reply and all that, so that you don't have any flakes, so that you're going to get on that first date. When you actually get on the first date, you need to do things so that it goes smoothly, it's not boring, and my advice is different to a lot of guys. Now, if you're a day gamer, things might be a little bit different because you're doing most of your game where you're not really including a lot of the elements of the pickup. If you're a night gamer, you probably do a lot of seduction and attraction stuff. If you're doing day game, you might not be working that in, and that can be a problem for a lot of guys where things just stale out, they never have that sexual interest going on, and it can be a problem. So we get to the point where it's the first date. You could go for a daytime date. These are harder. They require more in terms of conversation and interest. You don't have the help of alcohol and music and interesting places in terms of, busy bars and places where there's a lot to see in the environment. So it puts more emphasis on the interaction. If you're comfortable talking to girls and you're already all set, then it's no problem going for the daytime dates. But I would suggest that if you do, it's nice to do things like go for a walk and things where you've got things to talk about, where you're not just sat in a boring coffee shop and it's just entirely about the conversation. If you want to prepare, if you need a little bit of help, in my book I give a bunch of interesting questions. So you could ask her, if she likes traveling, and then you could ask her an interesting question like, if you could wake up anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would it be? Or you could say, talking a little bit about childhood, and you could say, what did you want to be when you were growing up, when you were a young girl? So you can prepare a few questions so that if you do run out of things to say, you've got something to fall back on. When it comes to the actual date, it's very important the first few seconds set the tone. So you can meet her and say, oh, hey, how are you? Let's go over here, like that, and you can be awkward. But it would be really good to actually meet her. You take her hands, you say, oh, wow, you really look great today. Nice to see you, like that. And you give her a kiss on the cheek. And then when you take her, you're leading her. You put your arm around her, you go arm in arm, or you take her hand when you cross roads and things like that. When you open the door, you've got your hand on the small of her back, leading her in, and you're setting the frame that it's a date, it's not friends meeting. So really quickly creating that sexual interest. I often see, I'm sitting in a restaurant or a coffee shop and I see people that are obviously on first dates, and it's really awkward because they're sitting opposite each other and they're not comfortable, the body language is not comfortable, and you see that he runs out of stuff to say and he's got this kind of nervous smile and she's uncomfortable, and it's a disaster. So what I try to do pretty much every time is to meet a girl in the night time. You want to have some cocktails or drinks, find interesting places and stuff going on. If she likes live music, if she likes cocktails, if she likes wine, whatever it is, and you choose a place where there's something interesting. Ideally, you go on that night the week before or earlier that evening and you scope it out. You make sure that it's got a free space that's comfortable. You want a kind of couch like this. You don't want to be sitting on uncomfortable chairs. You want a place where the music is not poundingly loud. You want a place where you can find a spot where you don't have to stand at the bar, etc. So do your homework and figure out where the place is. If you're sitting opposite, it's a lot more awkward. If you're side by side, you can do things where I'm quite lazy. So of course I can keep the conversation going, for an hour with no problem. But I like it when we're sitting side by side and I can just chill out a minute and I can look around the room, drink my drink, look over there. If my phone, I get a message, oh, excuse me a second, I'll just reply to this. And you've got this time when you're just showing that you're very comfortable and you're relaxed, and she gets to just relax in your presence. If you're face to face and you're like, should I look her in the eye, and I've run out of stuff to say, it makes you more self-conscious and it's tougher to do that. You can also talk about things in the environment. You're watching people dance or walk around. If you're sitting on a place like outside in the street, or if you're doing something like maybe you're smoking shisha, again, all of these things are things that kind of take the pressure off, and if you're someone that's not entirely comfortable in the conversation, it will really help. On the first date, you want to include a few elements. So you need to get to know her better. You need to use some connection stuff. It's great if you can make her laugh a little bit, but really the most important thing for me is that feeling of being relaxed. So there should be times when you're talking and then you just stop, and it's cool, and no one's uncomfortable, everyone's relaxed. And there should be some times where, the conversation just naturally breaks and you just look around the room, and you're basically very quickly creating that kind of situation that you'd have only after many months of knowing a girl, where you're just completely relaxed with each other. Of course, at some point in the date, it's time to escalate things, and it can start with what we've got now with, just our legs touching. It could progress to me just resting my hand there, or having some arm-to-arm touching. You could do something funny, like you can do that old school thing where you, oh, so tired, like that. But you do it in a funny way, of course, so it works. You can do something where maybe you're talking, and if you sense that it's on, you can take her hand and you can put it on your leg and then keep your hand there. At some point, you want to always keep things escalating, but the way to escalate is not to think too much about the actual touches and where you're touching her, but it's to think about sexual tension. And the number one way to generate that is just from time to time, you have those moments where you just stop and you look at her, and you could stroke her on her neck as you're doing that. You glance at her lips, and then you break it and you carry on, and maybe you go to saying something funny or whatever, and then you go back to doing that, and you're sensing how interested she is. In pretty much 100% of cases, it's going to be acceptable to give her a kiss on the cheek. And I've noticed that I often do that, as the first thing before I kiss her properly. So I might even just do it without saying anything. I just turn and give her a kiss on the cheek, and then a little kind of reassuring rub on the back. She's not going to go, ooh, how could you dare touch me? It's something that is socially acceptable, because a lot of people just kiss each other on the cheek when they meet. But in the situation of a date, it communicates sexual interest. So you've got the pauses, you kiss her on the cheek, you've got this kind of touch. And again, you just want to feel that the sexual tension's there, and then you can act on it when you like. So, when it's time to actually go and kiss her, if she's cool with you touching her here, and she's cool with you touching her on the cheek, and you're getting closer like that, and you're at a point where you're about this close, you're going to be fine from that point going for the kiss. Again, if you want to invite her back to the house on the first date, I've got another video on YouTube about that. But you could just say, let's go somewhere else, and you end up at your house. I've got all the ways to do that in the other video. It's up to you if you want to do it on the first date or not. But if you're already in a bar in the night time, it's going to be a much better situation to try that than if you're in the daytime in a coffee shop. So there you have it, guys. Some brief tips on first dates, and I hope you find them useful, and see you soon.
PUA training.